Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Spiritual Grind. We hope you enjoy it, and don't forget to follow, hit the little bell for your notifications when the podcast is posted, and follow, and share with your friends. We hope you enjoy it. Leave a comment if there's any topics that you want us to speak about.
Like, follow, share.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenny. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast.
Good morning.
We are in hugely growth. We are in huge growth ourselves right now. At least I am.
Wait, is it huge or is it huge?
Huge. It's going to be huge. I don't know.
Does it start with an H or a Y?
How about gigantic? That sounds better. It's easier to say for me, I guess.
I'm just rattling your cage.
You had to rattle my cage right off the bat. We're going to bifurcate from this location. Good morning, though.
What does that monkey say, Clyde?
Right turn, Glide?
Yeah, that. Right turn, Clyde.
Smack. That's what he always did. He always punched people on the street.
Oh.
Any which way but loose.
It's always some sort of theatrical play or movie in my head.
Yeah, life is a theatrical play.
Indeed.
I would agree with that. So our topic of the day is, I think, going to be one part of many parts in this series, because it's something that I think that we talk about it all the time, but we really haven't ever explained it.
Okay.
And that is your emotional guidance system. And I'm thinking we start with what it is, what it does, how it does, and then we can maybe work through each emotion that comes through that and see where the series goes. What do you think? And,
I'm game. Batter up.
Batter up. And so the emotional guidance system that we have, we refer to all the time. And I've been actually working on some things myself. And that emotional guidance system, it kind of directs you through your life based off beliefs and habits and programs and many other things. And, because we work, as Dr. Jenny says, off the pain and pleasure template. And there are so many socially taught phrases out there to get us to compartmentalize our emotions that we teach ourselves to sometimes not listen to that guidance system. And sometimes we do.
100%.
And so my part of the emotional guidance system is basically...
Do you know where that started from?
Where?
Back in probably, the 30s, 40s, and 50s when they started factory working. Mm-hmm. They had to teach the collective to detach from their emotions so that they could stand to be in the same place doing the same monotonous job over and over and over without emotion, almost trying to program them into a robotic state.
Oh, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. Carrot sandwich, everyone.
The guidance system for me is... Sometimes for me, because of my beliefs, I feel like my guidance system is off, but it's not, because
say it again.
I feel like sometimes my emotional guidance system is off, and so I don't listen to it because of how it makes you feel. And the reality is it's based on historical beliefs that you've created that creates the emotion behind in the guided system that's directing you along the way. Like, that's what I'm working on now, because I have taught myself, if I get angry about something, I compartmentalize it. And that comes from the socially taught phrases, things such as "it is what it is." The pain of leaving something becomes greater than the pain of getting...
The pain of staying is greater than the pain of leaving.
Yes, that's the phrase I was trying to spit out of my mouth.
Here, let me help you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. You saved my stumbling there. I was about to fall on my face, I think.
I grabbed you by your belt loop.
Yeah, thank you. I needed the help. There's many of them out there. Like when I was in the shower, I was thinking through all the stuff that you and I were talking about this morning. And why do I get angry? My guidance system says, okay, it's time to get angry. But why? And so there's many things behind it, expectations and beliefs and historical events and traumas and those kind of things. And right now I am bringing up anger, but we're really talking about the emotional guidance system and how it operates within us. I'm just using this as a catapult for me to bring this topic to the table, because the emotional guidance system is a part of our everyday life all the time.
Of course.
Constantly.
Yep.
And if we can learn to understand it more, then for me, it's going to really help me to stop looking or listening for problems and just move through with my guidance system. So what are you doing over there?
Thank God we're not on video. I'm playing with my stones.
She has about 30 stones on the table here. I don't know how many it is, but it's a bunch. She's got a big quartz sphere. She got some rose quartz points and some amethyst and obsidian and selenite and citrine, and then aura crystal and
calcite.
Yeah, she has. We're surrounded by stones. We're all stoned up in here.
My little stone babies.
And she's over here twiggling around in her pocket. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's got more stones in her pocket, apparently.
I'm that little kid that's got all the frogs and snakes. And
yeah, I'm waiting for a bullfrog to pop out of that pocket. Ribbit. And so the emotional guidance system, as we all know, it works for us because pain and pleasure template and the emotions within it, like you were saying the other day, something about the worst emotion is, what did you say?
So I don't use the word worst.
Okay.
But
the hardest or the
heaviest,
yeah.
The heaviest
lowest
emotion
vibrational emotion
would be, way down there in hopelessness, despair.
Yeah, that's what you said was despair.
Just complete and total give up because you see no way out. That's probably, there's probably one heavier. I'm getting that there's one heavier. I just don't have a word for it.
Okay. And so the guidance system, when we run through these emotions, how is it that these emotions come into our reality based off the guidance system?
Well, here we go.
Okay.
You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And if we put that in a scientific percentage, you're 90% spirit-ish, 10% human-ish. Some of us are hybrids. The spirit aspect of you always maintains the highest vibrational state that is closest to all that is.
Okay.
That's the natural state of being.
Okay.
So if you think about it like a bobber that you put on your fishing pole, if you let the bobber do what it naturally does, it's going to pop up to the top and float on the top because it has a high vibrational state.
Okay.
If you pull it under the water because it's weighted down with the weight or the baggage of life,
or the fish grabs it,
it's going to be pulled under the water. But the minute that the weight or the baggage is released, be it the fish or the weight or whatever, what does it do? It naturally pops back to the top where it belongs.
Okay.
So your emotional guidance system does exactly that. Your higher self, the spiritual aspect of you, is the bobber that always stays floating at the top because it always maintains that high, amazing, wonderful, blissful energy vibe. Always.
Okay.
When you humanly experience something and you give it a definition, then it turns into a belief that you hang on to that has a lower, heavier vibration. That's what pulls your bobber under the water, and we call that baggage that you're hanging on to.
That's the fish.
Or the weight or whatever. Yeah. And
so sometimes that fish fights.
And sometimes that fish does fight.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel good. Because you subconsciously, that, okay, you know what? I have dropped away from my natural state of being and it feels really crappy. But you can get kind of stuck in the quicksand of that emotion if you're not careful. If you get to a place in the game where you can say, okay, you know what? I dropped below my natural state of being, which is that high vibrational place, but I did it so that I could experience this circumstance, event, person from a human aspect, and it's only temporary. And as soon as I have that experience, put it in the history book, put the book on the universal library shelf, then you will naturally pop back up to higher self vibrational level because that's your natural state of being.
Okay. So when, like, for example, my example lately, I've had an angry fish that's pulling my bobber down the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And I worked through the processes humanly. And then you and I had a discussion this morning, and now I'm trying to find that I'm trying to grab a hold of the fish so he quits pulling my bobber down.
Yeah.
And I'm going through my belief systems and stuff, but here's where my monkey wrench comes in. I say monkey wrench. I don't even know the best metaphor to use for it is when that fish is fighting, that bobber stays down. Every now and then it pops up to the surface, and then it goes back down. It pops up to the surface. It goes back down. And so I have taught myself over the years to just let the fish fight until it gets tired.
I mean, that is a way to do it.
It just seems very long.
It is a very long way to get there.
And so I just want to be able to rip the fish out of the water, get it off the hook, and let the bobber go back where it's supposed to go.
Well, you catch and release.
Okay.
Catch and release.
That sounds easier than it is for me.
Catch and release. So, because eventually if the fish fights for so long, it will get exhausted and peter out and possibly even die.
Agreed.
And so then your bobber bobs right back to the top.
But I don't want to have to wait that long.
Oh.
And so that's where, because it comes to my awareness, because the reality is I've had this ball of anger for the last couple of days over some stuff that's going on in our reality.
Yeah.
And I know I control my reality. And I know that my emotional guidance system is saying, okay, anger, 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 why? And so I've started looking at why now because of our conversation this morning, instead of doing my old processes of just working through it humanly.
Yeah.
And because that's what's worked for me in the past.
Okay.
And it's created the habit. And I'm trying to remove that habit to where, because I'm generally a pretty lighthearted guy. I'm pretty, I'm pretty happy-go-lucky. I'm high-stepping most of the time. There are moments in my life where, at least that's how I perceive myself. There are moments like this last couple of days that I've just had this, golly, I just want to, that punch somebody in the face feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
And
well, the first question I would ask would be this. Why?
Why what?
Why does it feel so angry?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been looking at.
Okay, so then let's back up and let's say, okay, before I got angry about the topic, what was my feeling before that?
Well, I've had some before I got angry about it the topic wasn't even on my mind.
Of course it was.
It was.
Anger is a boiling pot.
Okay.
Anger doesn't just pop in.
Okay.
It's like making stew.
Okay.
You put a pan on the stove, you put the topic in the pot, and the longer it stews, the longer it bubbles, the hotter it gets until the lid pops off or it boils over.
Okay.
So if you are at a place where this is all culminating into a big ball of anger, it's been there for a minute.
Okay.
So you could possibly work backwards and say to yourself, the next question would be, what was my emotion about it before then? And if your first response is, well, I wasn't even thinking about it, then you got to go a little deeper and you got to open that door and say, okay, subconsciously, obviously I was thinking about it. And what was I thinking about? So if you find yourself sitting in a ball of anger, you have to first realize that it didn't just pop in. You didn't just immediately go from 0 to anger about this topic. It's been in there bubbling, bubbling, bubbling. And so there was an emotion before that about the topic that was lower on the vibrational scale, because anger is actually halfway between despair and blissful love. So when you get to a place of anger about a topic, you're actually progressing in a positive manner. And I know that sounds very strange to conceptualize, but anger is a higher vibrational frequency than despair, than hopelessness.
I agree.
It actually can fuel a human to take affirmative action and get off their tail end feeling depressed and hopelessness and take action to actually do something about the thing that they don't like. So it's a very powerful tool if you learn how to work with it, and honoring the fact that you have the anger and utilizing it in a positive way of looking at it like this. Okay, you know what? yay me, I am experiencing an angry moment about this. But what that tells me is that I am on the precipice. I'm on the verge of moving to the next level, high frequency on the vibrational scale. Whatever is above anger, I'm headed in that direction
As soon as you
because
release
the
it.
fire of the anger is shoving me in that direction. And so the next thing above anger would be maybe frustration, because you'll feel the anger dissipate a little bit, but you may still be aggravated or frustrated. That's the next thing on the list. And then you'll get to a place where when the topic is brought up, the next place would be
Disappointment, maybe.
maybe disappointment, maybe a little bit of vibrational, what's it called when you have an earthquake in the aftermath?
Tremors?
The aftershock.
Oh, aftershock. Okay.
You can think about it, and you're a little more comfortable with it. It doesn't create that angry storm, but you can feel it kind of rattling you just a hair.
Yeah.
And then from there, you get to a place where I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I've done the work. I can think about that topic. It doesn't bump up against anything. I have no definition, no feeling about it. Then you get to a place where you've completely been able to change your perspective about that and look at it as it helping you and be able to have gratitude and appreciation. Thank you for the experience, because I know on the other side of this experience, the excitement of what's coming next is exciting and joyful, and I look forward to that.
Okay.
So in the steps of how to get there,
You're kind of just describing the emotional guidance system.
right.
Right.
I was kind of just giving you a visual of if you were to put this on like a chart from the top to the bottom or from the bottom to the top. Despair's at the bottom of that little chart. Anger's about midpoint. Love or bliss or unity with higher self energy is at the very top.
Okay. So I read a book one time here a few years ago about anger, and they made a comment that really kind of rung home for me. But it's almost a human permission slip. And so in this book, he said, there's 3 steps to being angry. One is if you don't care, if a person doesn't care, they're never going to get angry. There's 3, not 3 steps, but it's 3 moderations of anger.
Yeah.
And so that it's a positive thing to realize that anger, if somebody doesn't get angry about something, they normally don't care, or they don't allow it to bother them. And the last thing of it is complete emotional release. And so they don't get angry about it because they've emotionally released it, or they are in a catalyst point of this anger is there for a reason. They identify, they move on. Or the other part of it is the positive side is realizing that if somebody is angry about something, it's because they care about it. They have to have a care emotion with it to care enough to be angry about it. Otherwise, it is emotionally disconnect from it.
That's right.
And so that's where the guidance system for me gets a little clouded, because I can care about something without getting angry when something happens.
Yes.
But my emotional guidance system takes me to the point of I care about this situation, and it makes me angry. But why? Why do I have to go to the angry spot?
Because it's a level on the progression of the emotion.
Okay, but what causes the anger? Is it a belief? Is it...
So when you have a topic that doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel good because it is no longer aligned with your belief systems are out of whack.
Okay.
And so, for example, if you are told as a child, you've got to get 8 hours of sleep, so you've got to go to bed at 8 o'clock so you can get up for school. And then you go into your teenage years, you move out, you go to dorm, and you're like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to go to bed whenever I want to, because that belief that my parents taught me and gave me as a guideline doesn't feel right, doesn't serve purpose. I want to regain my control. So you dump that belief, but you got a little frustrated and said, or a little angry and said, you know what? Screw my parents. I'm going to go to bed when the hell I want to. Before you moved out and became an adult, you just knew that that was a belief that was in place. That was a rule, and you had to abide by that rule or you got in trouble. So there wasn't a whole lot of emotion about it. There would be times when you got frustrated about it and didn't like it because you wanted to stay up late, but you just knew that it was kind of a household rule that you just had to abide by, and it was what it was. But then when you got the freedom of moving out of your parents' belief systems and the house, and you got to be out on your own, you begin to start modifying those beliefs and those guidelines by which you live. And you suddenly wake up and say, a better scenario would be, come on, Peter, let's go out. You're like, no, I got to get up and go to school in the morning. And so I get in bed at 8:30. So I have plenty of rest so I can do my grades. And then all of a sudden you're frustrated about it because they're nudging you, wanting you to go out and party and play with them. And you're like, ding, you know what? I'm my own boss. I don't have to go by that guideline anymore. And so there's a moment of feeling where it's like you're frustrated or just a hair bit angry about it. And then you release the belief and you go out and you party and do what you want. And that's how it's created.
I know this, that my parents used to make me go to bed at 8 o'clock because they wanted their private time. They wanted nothing to do with sleep. They just didn't want no kids around.
It is true. When you put the kids to bed, you can get a lot done.
Yeah, that's what it's for. It ain't nothing to do with sleep because I got up at 6 and they'd say, you'd have to get 8 hours of sleep, so you need to go to bed at 8. And I never once did the math. Anyway, that's 10 hours.
Trickery at its best.
They did. They triggered me.
So back to your question, why do you get angry? Because you're working your way up the vibrational scale. So if you have a topic that doesn't really create an emotion in you, you're not really going to give it any attention. You're just going to move on and it's no big deal. But if it's a topic that bumps up against a belief that you have in place that is no longer serving you, that's what it's trying to show you. If you have no belief formulated around it, then it doesn't matter. If a stranger, walks by your path and says, your shoes are ugly, and you don't really have a belief about that.
F you, buddy.
You don't really have a belief about it, and it doesn't really, you don't know the person, and you like, okay, so what? He said that, no big deal, move on. There's no emotion necessarily attached to it. Then you just don't give it, you come home and you say, you know what? I had this weirdest experience. This strange person walked by and he said he didn't like my shoes. What was that about? And that's really all that's probably said about it. And there's no emotion really created from it because it just doesn't matter. But if you have a belief about something and we'll use the shoe example. If you had, as a child, some bully group that always made fun of your shoes and you were poor and you didn't get the best of the shoes that you thought were the popular shoes or whatever, and you constantly were being bullied or haggled about your shoes, and that same person walks by the bench and makes fun of your shoes, that's liable to create an emotion in you because you have a belief around your shoes based on an experience that you had that you're hanging on to.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. That actually happened to me. They used to pick on me because I didn't have the fancy clothes or the fancy shoes until I got big enough, and then I punched them in the face. They quit picking on me.
And there you have it. So the reason that you have an emotion about anything, about any topic, is because you have a belief system in your makeup that is active and is needing to be reworked.
Okay, so in the emotional guidance system, we get an emotion based off a historical event or belief or trauma or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
If it's a good emotion, then it's off a happy event or belief.
Yeah.
And if it's what we consider a bad emotion, then it's off a bad belief or a bad historical event or trauma. And so here are the things that within my emotional guidance system that we were just talking about is, like you said, the anger, disappointment, frustration, disappointment. You kind of climb up the ladder.
Yep.
And so I get confused sometimes when it comes to some of these emotions. Am I supposed to go with the flow of the emotion, or am I supposed to look at the belief that's causing the emotion?
Well, the first thing I would say is that you're not supposed to do anything.
You're not supposed to?
You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. However, if you want to do something, those have two different vibrational frequencies.
Okay.
So if you're always telling yourself, okay, well, I'm supposed to do this because this is the right thing, that holds a very different frequency than, okay, this has been revealed to me. I want to learn and grow from this, so let me explore it. Those are different energies about them. So the have to is kind of a weighted down drudgery. If I'm going to be a good spiritual person, or if I always have to work on myself. Let me clean this mess up.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that feels.
You mean that's where the kind of the definition of awakened come in, I think, is everybody believes that if you're awakened, you're supposed to be able to stop and look at these things all the time. And you're in a constant state of, self-repair and those kind of things. But for me, it's not about that. I don't care what others think. Right. I do care about how I feel. And when these emotions come up, like anger never really bothered me. It was okay for me to be angry because, when I was younger, anger was a defense mechanism. And then as I went through my maturity and I grew and I realized that anger and aggression are not very far apart. And so I learned that I could be angry and compartmentalize without having an aggression, or when I needed aggression, it was there. So moving through those processes now that I'm really kind of I would call myself in an advanced awakened state. Mm. I don't like the fact that anger and aggression are so close together, but I view anger as a positive emotion. And so I've been looking at the belief system behind it because I don't like it. And what angers me in this particular situation we're talking about is we create our environment, we create our reality. And then when something else steps in from that, it angers me because it changes it. And like, for example, which I know I create this reality, but why did I create the reality in this way to where I get angry about it? But I look at angry as a positive emotion. So you see the confusion here.
Well, yeah, we could definitely clean it up to go back to what are the steps. Uh-huh. So if you can't identify why you're angry about it, what was your emotion about it before you got angry?
I don't know.
Fear.
Fear of getting angry.
No.
Fear of something going to happen.
Fear that if this happens, something bad's going to come out of it.
So is fear below anger or above anger?
Fear is below.
Below anger. So it's a lower vibrational state. Okay.
Because fear can keep you from moving forward. Anger fuels the moving forward. So when you get fed up enough and angry enough about something, even though it's scary and unknown and fearful, the fear is what's going to move you forward and make you take that step, because the fear of staying where you're at is more uncomfortable than the anger of or the unknown of going forward.
Understood.
So fear is that middle ground that fuels the vehicle to go forward.
And on top of that fear is creating that reality. That fear is what created the reality that angered me.
That's right.
And so it does me no good to look at the anger beliefs. I need to look at the fear beliefs.
You got to back up a little bit.
Okay.
And you got to look at the emotion before that, because all that's happening on a subconscious basis is when you go into fear, you're going up the vibrational scale from where you were before. And if you don't understand why you're having the fear, then sometimes it's hard to allow the fear to be because you don't understand it. So if you back up and you identify what the emotion was that you were having before that, and you understand that it was fear, then you can understand that, okay, anger is a higher frequency than fear. So all I'm doing really is moving up the vibrational scale. And I'm excited because I know that on the edge of anger is going to come exponential growth. Okay. And that is fun and exciting to see what you manifest and change into and align with next. That's how you get to a place of being completely comfortable with anger or even fear. Because even when you're at that state of fear and you come to the realization of being able to say, okay, you know what? I'm in the place of fear, but I know that and I acknowledge it. You don't have to necessarily go to anger. You could skip over anger and go straight into okay, I'm going to remove fear and I'm going to allow myself to go into the unknown, trusting wholeheartedly that my higher self has my best interest at heart and that this is going to be all okay and that it is all okay. It will actually let you bypass anger.
Okay.
The reason anger comes about is because you're not at a place yet where you can look at the fear or the despair or those vibrational places lower than that on a conscious level and really understand them.
Understood. And I think that's where I was going wrong within my emotional guidance system was I was looking at that beliefs behind anger instead of looking into the beliefs behind the fear of the situation that caused the anger.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm done. See y'all later. Have a good day. Have identified my problem. Sorry about y'all. I'm kidding.
So the steps would be back up from the anger and look at what was the emotion before the anger. But sometimes if you're too tangled up in it, you can do the exact thing that you did, which was I wasn't really thinking about it. It didn't really exist until the anger came. Well, that's the whole job of anger, is to get your attention. Mm-hmm. Because anger is such a loud emotion. We manifest anger in ourselves to knock ourselves in the head and say, hey, hello, trying to get your attention. You weren't listening at the place of fear, so let me bring about some anger to get your butt moving and get your attention. So if you back up and think about what was my emotion in it and really get clear about that, then you'll be able to open up and let the information come in of, oh, yeah, this topic did exist and it's been brewing for a minute. It's just that it went a little too long and it went into anger
to my guidance system
because I wasn't necessarily identifying that I was afraid of it.
Because you'll move through the guidance system up and down. So
yeah,
maybe you start at unhappy or disappointment, and it just crawls down into frustration, and then it grows into anger and fear, and then anger or whatever. Where the fear at kind of moves. I can see where fear would actually kind of move around in the emotional guidance. And so
it's not that fear moves around. It's that you move around back and forth.
Okay.
You move back and forth between fear and anger, fear, hopeless, back to fear. You're constantly moving yourself up and down the chart, if you will, from bottom to top, bottom being the heavy vibrations. So it's not that emotion ever moves on the chart. It has its frequency, and that frequency is what it is. It's that you're moving based on your perspective of the situation, whatever that situation is. You may be ebbing and flowing back and forth until you get to a place where you can identify what the belief is, what the habit of thought is that's causing the emotion.
Okay. And so in my mind, I'm visualizing this list of emotions, and it's got a little arrow by it that moves up and down.
Yeah.
Automatically within our daily interactions in life.
And you're the arrow.
And we're the arrow, right? Yeah. Then behind those emotions are like a bracket, and it's got like, say behind happy is joyful, and this is why. This is a historical event that caused it. And so you have this, or your definition is there. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm visualizing in my head, this list of things. And as we move up and down our arrow throughout our daily lives, sometimes that arrow gets stuck.
Can, for sure.
On that single emotion. And I think the problem with this particular event for me was I wasn't paying attention to my emotional guidance system, because our guidance system will teach us, hey, what feels good but don't feel good, which direction should we go, why, or bifurcation, as you say, in the road we should take, what decision we should make. It affects a lot.
Right, but why did it get stuck?
That's where I was going with that question.
Yeah.
And so, but where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I'm getting where.
Who's Carmen Sandiego?
Oh, you don't remember that cartoon?
No.
Oh, that was a cartoon back in the 80s. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Is it a person?
Yeah, it was like a cartoon thing. I believe it was on right before Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh, I probably wasn't up
PBS.
that early.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. But when that emotion, that arrow gets stuck on that emotion, it's got to be either A, and this is just me taking a wild guess.
Yeah.
It's got to be a circumstance or event that's based on a belief that's causing us to stick there because our higher self wants us to say, stop and look at this. Or it's B, we're having a human interaction with that emotion that we are hanging on to because I don't know why.
Okay, so let's clean up a couple of things.
Okay.
Your higher self never wants you to be in a lower vibrational place. Your higher self is always summoning you to join in your natural state of being.
I agree with that. But
Always.
let me say this real quick.
Okay.
Is our higher self, for me, the emotional guidance system, anywhere on it, is only a lower vibrational place if we humanly stay in that spot. Because our emotions are given to us by our higher self and our belief system. And so for me, the entire emotional guidance system is not a negative. There's nothing negative in any of it.
Okay.
It's not vibrational low. Matter of fact, it's being in a higher vibration that allows us to see those emotional responses. And so when I look at it in the way of why am I here, it's got to be a human response for me. And right, so it hangs me on there, which in turn lowers my vibration because now I've aligned with that emotion or a higher vibration if it's a good emotion. Yeah, okay. Do you agree?
Well, it's not about whether I agree or not. It's about whatever your perspective of it is.
Okay.
It is not designed to ever put you in a situation that is a lower vibration, lower frequency.
Okay.
That is you wanting to experience something humanly. You put yourself there.
Okay. I agree.
And whether you hang out there for a year, a day, a month, 20 years is your human choice to do so because you feel like that you have more to learn or you have a belief that says if I leave here, something bad's going to happen, something, because your higher self always will take the best of the best and create the most magnificent reality based on all of your little pockets of desire and create an amazing life. And if you choose to line up with it and live a blissful life, that is your choice humanly, or you can choose to hang around in the muck.
So what is your definition?
Put on some rain boots.
In 2 sentences or less.
Okay.
What is your definition of the emotional guidance system?
The definition I have of the emotional guidance system, it's my life compass that shows me that I am ready to modify or update my operating system.
Okay. Which is operating system definition?
Beliefs, patterns, and programs.
Okay. That's
to include definitions.
And so basically your life is your car, your propellant is you driving that car, and the emotional navigation system is literally Google Maps that's taking you somewhere you're going. Be it a journey, be it a experience, be it whatever it is. I'm just putting metaphor out there. So
that's a big sandwich to take a bite of. Let me process your example that you're trying to use.
That's her processor working.
So you're trying to use a metaphorical example.
Yes, for visualization purpose, because I was told to do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I get it. But I'm trying to understand what it is you're trying to help people visualize. The guidance system?
Yes.
Okay.
So the guidance system, though,
I think you're making it harder than it has to be.
It is. I am.
It's just not that hard.
I do that sometimes,
It's just not that hard.
Okay.
Find the feel better place in every given moment and do that thing, no matter how long it lasts. A minute, a year, a day. If it feels good when you do it, do that. Because that automatically raises your vibrational frequency. When you're doing something that brings you excitement or joy or fun or that you look forward to doing or that you can't wait to get home to do that.
Okay, so.
Because that feels better than whatever you're doing. And if you're in the middle of having to do something that doesn't feel good because you can't really humanly find a way to change it at the moment, then daydream about that thing that feels better that you're going to go home and do. So at any given moment, you're just finding the next thing that will make you feel a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, whatever that is.
Okay. So knowing what I know about reality, that we will recreate realities just to get the experience that we're supposed to be getting. And so if we just automatically jump from, and we can, based on our emotional guidance system, from one thing to the next without looking at what caused the uncomfortable spot, don't we repeat history and it'll come back?
Well, you can.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it's also okay for it to just be an experience. So let's go here with it. If you have a belief that you're going to recreate history, if you don't pick this thing apart for days, months, and years, then yes, that will be what happens for you. But it's based on the fact that you have a definition and a belief that if I don't work this process in exactly this way, then I have a fear that I'm going to recreate an unpleasant history. And I don't want to do that. So I'm meticulously going to work this process in exactly this way, no matter how long it takes me. Because if I don't, something bad is going to happen. The next level of education on that is that it doesn't have to look that way if you modify that belief and those definitions. You can get to a place where, okay, you know what? I had this experience. I did what I was supposed to do, which is to humanly come in a blinded state, basically, with the veil down so that I can have an authentic experience of what it feels like to be this character in this play. It's nothing more than an experience. Write it in the history book, put it in the library for all that is to use and experience it through you, and just release it and move on to the next thing. The process doesn't have to be that intricate, that detailed, that meticulous. It's okay to just have the experience, log it, move on, and okay, what's the next experience? You don't have to even define whether the experience was good or bad or not. You experienced it, log it, and move on.
Okay. I have a greater understanding of my emotional guided system after our conversation this morning and this podcast, of course. And my processes, I am working on changing those things because, you know, what you say is it's much easier to say than it is for me to complete. And so I'm working on that. For me, just to look at something that angers me and say, okay, I'm letting this go. I'm moving on, and not look at why it angered me, because anger for me is a strong emotion. I think some people have different emotional levels.
Anger is a strong emotion for everyone by design.
Mm-hmm. And what about
anger is designed to be loud, to get your attention.
So some people, though, have different levels of volume on each emotion.
Of course, everybody does.
Right. And so it's going to be, for me, volume of happy is normally very loud. I like to be happy. I like to be outgoing. I like to be nonchalant. I like to be moving around and joking. Now, my arrow moves up and down that thing sometimes. And so, but that's a very loud volume for me, just like anger is. Anger is a very loud volume for me. I've never really went to the despair part that I can remember.
Yeah, you have.
And I have, maybe I bumped against it maybe a time or two, I would say. But the biggest part of the emotional guidance system that I am talking about for me is understanding that my emotions are at different levels based on what I'm doing, and how loud they are is based on my beliefs and me paying attention to the guidance system. If I don't pay attention to it, it's going to get louder. And so that's where I was kind of going with that, is understanding for me that sad emotion for me is normally very short and it's not very loud. I don't get sad very easy. So in other people, sad may be a very loud emotion.
Right. But that's because we're all designed very uniquely, just like a fingerprint. I say that a lot. And your higher self knows what emotions will get your attention when it's time to do something different than what you're doing.
What I was talking about is realizing the volumes are different in the emotions. And for me, sad is not a very loud emotion. Anger is a loud emotion. Happy is a loud emotion. I've identified myself. What I'm saying is I identified the emotions within me that have those levels of volume. And like you said, anger by design has a volume, but does a happy by design have a assigned volume? And who assigns these volumes? Where does that volume come from? Because I know people that when they get angry, they're kind of just nonchalant about it.
Well, the volume is decided by the individual person based on the definition that they give the emotion.
Okay.
And so if you have somebody that's a low-key angered person, it's because they've been taught or picked up along their path that anger represents some sort of something, and they keep it under wraps. For example, you and I have had conversations. When you get into that really, really, really deep, angry place, you will actually energetically encapsulate yourself to where I can't feel you, because you don't want me to feel that deep, heavy,
negative vibration.
But that's because you have defined anger in some sort of way for yourself based on beliefs and definitions. And so each individual is going to have a certain volume, as you say, around the emotional guidance system scale based on the definitions they give to each emotion. And so if somebody has a definition, for example, that being happy means they're yelling and laughing and talking in a loud voice and always the life of the party and doing backflips and all of that, then when they reach that vibrational state, they're going to be, to some of us, very annoyingly loud.
I agree.
But that's because they have a definition in place that that's what it's supposed to look like. And so therefore, that's what they play out.
Okay.
For me, for example, when I'm happy and joyful, my definition is not that I have to be this acrobatic clown and loud and whatever. And so sometimes I can be joyful and excited, and you'll ask me, are you even excited about it? Because I have no facial expression and I'm not doing backflips or any of that. I don't have to be.
Well, I expect you to put on your clown shoes and your ooga horn and run around the house going, ooga, 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 wearing that big floppy shit.
And my clown nose.
And your clown nose.
And so the level by which somebody experiences an emotion is still based on the definition they give that emotion.
Okay.
You gave anger a definition that it's not completely okay to experience it at a higher level because of the fear of what you might humanly act upon and do. And so you encapsulate it until you can process it and bring that energy level down and to kind of control it, so to speak.
I agree. I do.
Because you have a
said
fear of punching somebody out, for example. So based on your definition, you handle and respond to that emotion differently.
Well, I respond to it based off the fight or flight mechanism.
Based on the definition.
Right, based off the definition. And so, like, in my sense, in my situation, which not everybody's going to be the same, is I've identified anger as a place of the next step is aggression. And so, and I'm not a runner. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to get in your face and fight. And so
Why?
I've just always been that way. I've never really stopped to identify why.
Do you like it?
I mean, I think there's something to be said for standing up for yourself. Yeah.
Because it's okay to walk away from it and not, what's his name said, turn the other cheek.
Yeah, I agree. And when they turn the cheek, no, I'm kidding. I was going to say I hit that one too, but
it's just asking.
For me, I think we're all different, and I've often wondered what identifies that in people in fight or flight. Maybe we'll cover that on another podcast. But with mine, I've never been that guy that runs. I've always been that guy because I got tired of being bullied when I was a kid, and then when I learned to stand up for myself and fight, my entire reality changed.
Well, of course it did.
And so I think that's where I learned
it still
the
is
trait.
just a story. It still is just a definition that you are creating, which is designing your reality.
Well, you can say the same thing about flighting. Why is it okay to flight?
Of course. It's because there's a definition in place.
Right. That's
and a belief in place.
Difference of the emotional guidance system comes into play. Is some people, they don't want to have to deal with the emotions. Or I don't even know if that, because I kind of identify flighting as not wanting to deal with the emotions. I guess maybe
that's your definition.
That's my definition, yeah. And so, I don't really.
It's kind of like that Twix commercial where there's
left Twix or right Twix,
or the Red Bull, and he says you're not running very fast, and the other one says I don't have to run that fast. I just have to be faster than you. And the tiger's chasing both of the antelopes.
Oh, yeah, that's
fight or flight. Sometimes it's okay to just remove the definition and say, so what, and walk away from it.
I agree with that if it's your definition, if you have defined it that way. Because I used to walk away. I used to just deal with it and move on and remove myself from the situation. And I don't know, so it's really, I guess I'm too really caught up in my other subjects today to really stop and look at that one.
Yeah, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Anyway, that would maybe be another good podcast subject.
Take a note.
The fight or flight mechanism. But anyway.
What I would say is if the listeners want to dive deeper into specific experiences or have additional questions, pop them on the media places, and we'll answer the questions individually.
Or go to the website, and it's www.themerccenters.org, and that is ThemerCenters.org. And you can drop us an email on there. You can subscribe to the blog, do the blog posting, and they'll automatically send your email, because we do blogs every podcast as well.
Yeah, good stuff.
Like, follow, share. We appreciate y'all listening.
Ding the bell.
Ding the bell for the notifications. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding.
We appreciate y'all listening, and have an awesome day.
Love you.